Hello and welcome to our presentation. I am Dr. Kari Carstairs, clinical psychologist in private practice in London. And I'm here today with 4 colleagues. We're very keen to tell you about a new and exciting development with the comprehensive system. It is called the CS-R, and it is a revision of the original comprehensive system. My colleagues are Andrea Priddy, Patrick Fontan, and Andronikof, and Noriko Nakamura. The announcement of the CS-R may have come as a surprise to some. Let's hear from Andrea and Noriko about their work with John Exner on the original comprehensive system. And then we will hear about how the new system has evolved from this. So Andrea, let's start with you. Please tell us about your involvement with Rorschach workshops and the Research Council prior to your father's death in 2006.
Well, I worked for Rorschach workshops since I was a young teenager. Back when my father was developing the books, I was the kid sitting on the floor putting together the form quality tables into stacks. So I've always had involvement with Rorschach workshops since I was a child. And I've been a part of many projects over the years, both research related and workshop related, book sales, planning workshops, just about everything. And I was very fortunate to work side by side with both of my parents. Many people don't know that my mother was the financial end of Rorschach workshops. She did all the bookkeeping, all payments, everything went through her. So she was basically the financial stability marker of Rorschach workshops throughout the years. I was also a collaborating author on the 5th edition of the workbook. I did most of the graphics in there as well. Shortly before my father's passing in 2006, he had planned on discontinuing his Rorschach Research Council, which had been in effect for several years. He just felt that it was less productive than he wanted. He was frustrated. He left a half a dozen notebooks at the time of his passing, in addition to multiple computer files. He was frustrated with the council and said that they, more often than not, were interested in their own projects rather than furthering the comprehensive system and the tasks at hand that he had presented to them. And as a result, upon his death, he didn't make any arrangements to continue the council or any projects after that. He, just didn't feel like that would be a productive move. He was frustrated on several things, but he was, at the time of his death, he had begun writing a 6th edition of the workbook. He was going to make a few changes and put things out there. He was hoping that people would do research on things that were being projected. There were people working on things that he thought were interesting, but that needed more research. And he was just trying to find the people to do that. We actually didn't even find all of these things for quite some time after his passing. It was a very difficult time. My mother had lost her partner of over 55 years.
Right.
It was a tough go round there. And it took us a while to get through all of that information, but it was quite eye-opening after reading through all of it, really what he was thinking and planning and hoping for, not only for the future of his life, but the future of his work. So it was quite interesting for all of us.
Well, thank you so much, Andrea. What comes across is that it was a family business, that you all worked together on this project.
Still is.
Still is.
My husband is in the office right now putting together the daily orders.
Okay, that's very nice, very nice. And I didn't know that he was working on a 6th edition of the workbook. That's interesting to me. And also these notebooks that you found, very, very interesting. Thank you for sharing that with us. Anne, please tell us about your work with John Exner.
I will tell you just a few words about my relationship with John Exner. It started in 1981 at the Washington Congress of the International Rorschach Society, where I presented my doctoral study on the psychological development of children with insulin-dependent diabetes. Mm-hmm. And since then, our relationship, John and I, was both friendly and working, and it never abated. He invited me to assist him in several comprehensive system workshops in the US and to be a member of his research council. I was a member of his faculty for all training outside of the US, and the only other person agreed for training in Europe was our estimated colleague Concepcion Sendin. And John Exner was the honorary president of the European Rorschach Association I founded in 1999, and which changed its name for CSR, Comprehensive System International Rorschach Association, later on. So that's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you very much. Noriko, please let's now hear from you about how you met John Exner and how your relationship with him and his work developed.
Thank you. I met John Exner at the Washington, D.C. ISR 10th International Congress also in 1981. Unfortunately, I didn't meet Anne at that time. And when I encountered John Exner's work, the reason why it was eye-opening experience to me was because the Rorschach was Rorschach, but the way John Exner used Rorschach was not for the diagnosis per se, but to understand person's personality, total, full understanding of the personality may include, will guide us to understand also the diagnosis, but not the purpose itself. We were lucky to be able to invite John Exner to teach us directly here in Japan. You know, Asheville and Tokyo is really far, really far away. But, you know, he managed to come to visit us, and, you know, we were so excited. All Japanese participants were so excited to be taught directly by John Exner. And finally, in 1993, we were able to create a society, Japan Rorschach Society for Comprehensive System. We started with 26, but now it's it has been growing, and now nearly 600, and still it's alive and well taught and accepted here. So I was my life changed since meeting John Exner, but all my journey until today, and it was really all through exciting one.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So now I'd like to ask each of you, from your different perspectives, your different points of view, what your understanding is of John Exner's position on the comprehensive system at the time of his death. I think you started to speak a little bit about this, Andrea, but perhaps you would have a few more words you'd like to say now about that.
Of course. I think everyone knew that he wanted his lifelong work preserved and continued for as long as it could be. Unfortunately, there is this rumor that has circulated that I don't know where it came from, but the rumor was that my mother stated emphatically that the CS was frozen in time, and it's certainly not true, and it's not what my father intended. It's not what my mother intended. Within a week of his passing, we had multiple letters and emails from people that knew him well, that were very quick to propose that basically my mother had no business running the organization by herself. There was no psychologist in charge, and some people thought that she should sell the rights to his works. My mother hadn't even had the business put in her name yet when these things started coming in saying, you know, let us handle it, things like that. To say the least, it left us very saddened, very dismayed that people that my father trusted acted in this manner.
I'm glad you cleared that up about that rumor, because I heard that myself, and I remember the time being so startled, because my sense of your father, whom I didn't know well, but I had some contact with, was that research was at the heart of what he did.
Yes.
And that the system was based in the research and the data. So I couldn't understand this, and I didn't know what sense to make of it when I heard that rumor. So I'm glad you cleared that up. We're going to move on to talk about how the comprehensive system has in fact been revised. But before we do that, Anne, what is your perspective? What is your understanding of John Exner's position on the comprehensive system at the time of his death? What would you say in response to that?
Well, for me, it's very clear and very simple, because John Exner always, and he wrote it many times in many different ways and articles, that he never thought that he had created the comprehensive system in such a definite way. And I would like to read out what he wrote in the preface of the 5th edition of a Rorschach workbook for the comprehensive system. The system now appears to stand about as complete as possible, but it is very likely that future research will lead to the development of new approaches to coding some types of responses, or the discovery of new variables or strategies that will enhance the interpretive yield of the test. In other words, it would be foolish to assume that the comprehensive system has reached the last pinnacle in its development. So for me, it is very clear, and I think that John was trying to find who could take over the comprehensive system after him. And unfortunately, he didn't find at that time. But his purpose, his aim, his wish was that somebody would take over his work, his creation, and lead it to further development. For me, it's very clear.
Great. Okay. Well, now we're going to turn to our second topic, which is about the new and exciting development with the comprehensive system, the CS-R. And I'm going to turn now to our colleague, Patrick, and ask you, please, Patrick, to describe how you came to develop the CS-R.
Well, we've been working with the CS for many years, and we must say that we are very grateful to Andrea, to allow us to work on such a material, which is a masterpiece of psychological assessment. And but to answer your question, if I was to pick up starting point, I was at school someday, I was going for lunch, and I was thinking about Rorschach norms, and at that time I was also interested in set theory in mathematics, many things about Georges Cantor, Bertrand Russell, Gottlob Frege, these kind of things. So I started to think about Rorschach norms from a set theory perspective, and I imagine to have Rorschach data for mankind, the largest Rorschach sample possible. And of course, within such a sample, you've got subsamples or subsets. You've got French, Japanese, you've got men, women, adults, children, but also you've got random samples. So I started wondering about random and non-random samples, and I had this very strong, very vivid idea. It's just a sampling problem. It was very strong. So I kind of saw in my mind the norm simulation technique. Well, it's described in the manual like 30 pages, but it meant that we were going to be able to use national norms in clinical practice. So I came to see Anne, and I told her, we can make it. We can revise the comprehensive system. We talked 2 hours about possibilities and everything. And then it was all started. It was just 1,000 hours of meetings and scoring sessions, algorithm and computations and everything. But from that moment, we knew that we were going to revise the comprehensive system in a way or another.
So a starting point was this idea of each country is like a different subset of the sample of the whole world.
Yes.
And you want to have a system where the psychologist sitting within a particular country can refer to those norms, those local norms. Okay, exactly. So that was kind of a starting point for the CS-R.
Yes.
I see. That's interesting. Okay. Anne, would you like to describe, please, the evidence that supports the CS-R and give us some indication about how we might learn more about this?
Yes, let me try to explain that. First, I think it's very important for me to say that I have learned many different systems for analyzing the Rorschach test, for administering it and for analyzing it. So I have been trained in the psychoanalytical system and in the phenomenological system, etc., many different systems. And when I encountered the comprehensive system, I saw that this was the most, how would you say in English, le plus abouti. In English, it would be the most accomplished system.
Accomplished.
And the comprehensive system became, in my clinical experience, which has, I have worked in many different settings, including for the justice. I have been expert witness for the justice many times for 30 years of my life. And I have seen that a comprehensive system was the mode of interpreting the Rorschach that did give me the correct answers, responses to the questions that people were asking, either in the medical settings, psychiatric settings, or justice systems. So my first point is that my interest, continuing interest in the comprehensive system is not for any, any conservatism and necessity to keep things just as they are. It is because I know, for me, I know that the comprehensive system is the most extraordinary system for the Rorschach that I ever knew about. Now, the necessity to develop and update the comprehensive system became evident for the following reasons. One, something has to be done to enhance the scoring, reliability, and the interpretation of the test. Second, considering the evolution of concepts and theories in psychology. And third, taking into account the most recent literature which brought new scientific evidence about the test and which opened a lot of controversies. So these are the reasons why this is some evidence, both scientific and experiential, that supports the necessity to revise the comprehensive system and develop it. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Patrick, can you just give us a summary of the main features of this revision and how it compares with the original CS?
Well, obviously, the most important main feature of the CS-R is the possibility to use national norms in clinical practice. However, we thought that this was not enough, and we didn't want to provide just an add-on to the CS. We wanted to revise the whole thing. There are many changes to this in the CS-R, including administration and scoring criteria, for example, just as Anne pointed out. However, the CS-R relies heavily on norms which have been collected with the original CS procedures. So we took great care that these revisions are compatible with the existing norms and data. So it's a kind of balance between using these data and revising what needs to be revised. Also, we wanted to improve the efficiency of the interpretive routines. So, for example, the interpretation is now divided into 5 phases, and the first one is validity. And we created a proper validity cluster with different steps to go through for the psychologist before interpreting the results. I worked a lot on the clinical interpretive process of the interpretation, and I managed to divide the number of steps by a factor 2. I think something like 37 in the CS-R, while it was 72 in the CS. And we managed to do it with a very little loss of information. Also, I worked a lot on the CS key features and the indices and the constellations, as they are obviously the structuring elements of interpretation. We kept the original indices, but most of them needed to be reworked. We need to precise the interpretation guidelines for them, and I also developed adjusted indices to take into account normative data.
Great. Okay. Thanks. Well, let's move on to our third topic, which is about the Institute, the International Rorschach Institute, or IRI. Andrea, perhaps you could start, please, and tell us a bit more now about your role in Rorschach workshops and your relationship with the developers of the CS-R.
Well, since my mother's passing in 2019, I have been left the company. So I am the owner of Rorschach Workshops. It continues to thrive. We sell the books and the other comprehensive system products on a worldwide basis. And I've been very fortunate to have reconnected with Anne and Noriko. We've all known each other for decades. So it's been very nice reconnecting with both of them and working with them. And I've been incredibly impressed, as I know my father would absolutely love Patrick and the work that he has done. He is just unbelievably brilliant when it comes to so many facets of of this whole area. His computer program is wonderful. His ideas, his energy. We're all very fortunate to have him on the team. And I'm very happy with the changes that they're making and rewriting the books and incorporating this new information and getting it out there and reviving my father's works. Rorschach Workshops will be handling all the in-print copies of the CS-R textbooks. The Institute will be exclusively distributing Chess 2, and they will also eventually have digital copies of both of the CS-R books for sale along with that. So we all see a very bright future for the comprehensive system, and both of our businesses working together as a unit.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick, I believe you established the International Rorschach Institute alongside your colleagues. Just describe the organization for us a bit and tell us about its goals.
The Institute is a private DIY initiative by a group of CS specialists who have decided to work together and join forces for the development of the Rorschach in general and the CS in particular, as related to research, development, teaching, and clinical applications. Our primary objectives, of course, is the release of the CS-R books and Chess 2, but we have other mid or to long-term objectives, for example, translations in the books in different languages, or normative studies, these kind of things.
Okay, well, thank you. Noriko, you have told us a bit already about your work with the comprehensive system in Japan. Perhaps now you could tell us a bit about your role in the International Rorschach Institute and how that connects with the work in Japan.
I like the idea of IRI because John Exner created comprehensive system within USA, but this time our development and our growth is a kind of another stage to do the research and check the revise the comprehensive system with more global professionals. That's the biggest difference. And I am here for a small window or the bridge to connect both ways. Thank you.
Yeah.
If I may, well, we have here typical cultural expression of Japanese humility. And Noriko had a tremendous role in this story because she is the one who actually connected the Institute to Rorschach workshops. If she wasn't there, it might have been much more difficult, and she managed to connect our two organizations, and we are very grateful to her for that.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Great collaboration, a great international collaboration. It's wonderful. Anne, would you like to add some words, please, on your role in relation to the IRI, the International Rorschach Institute? I find that IRI hard to say. What is your role in relation to the Institute, please?
Oh, it's simple. I have the role of scientific advisor, and I'm presently writing a draft of the new workbook. The IRI, how do you call it? IRI?
IRI.
The IRI. Well, the International Rorschach
Institute.
Well, it's a logical creation stemming from the Xera community. Xera is going to stay a scientific organization to which all comprehensive system practitioners, clinicians, researchers, teachers, whatever, can participate. And the IRI can be considered as the operational arm of CR.
Okay, well, our fourth and last topic, the future. So I want to ask each of you about this. Andrea, what are your plans for the future for Rorschach workshops?
Rorschach workshops will continue to operate for as long as people want comprehensive system products, period.
Okay.
We've been in business since 1968, and there's no stopping us now. We're going to continue selling the current 5th edition of the workbook and the primer at least through the end of 2022. Mm-hmm. We will continue to provide support for any instructors who want to add the new material to their curriculum. We're directing emails regarding workshops directly to the Institute now, as they're going to begin webinars and workshops and different things later in 2022 to get people better versed with the changes. But Rorschach workshops will be here now and for the foreseeable future.
That's great. Okay. Noriko, what are your hopes for the Rorschach in the future?
My hope is I would like to say that we are doing something strange thing, like making invisible humans' personality visible. And that's why this is very difficult. And as Anne said, I used to remember John Exner told us repeatedly that Rorschach is never perfect. You know, we should continue to research, and we should do that for the benefit and welfare for the clients, not for us. Benefit and welfare for the clients. So I think we should not forget that. And I am proud of our group that we are on the right road, right direction to improve comprehensive system for what we learned from John Exner.
Yes, and to benefit patients. Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. So lastly, Patrick and Anne, any last comments on training or research and your thoughts for the future?
Anne?
Well, yes, I'd like to say a few words about what I think about the future of the Rorschach. The future of the comprehensive system will depend on the psychologists themselves. Will the psychologists fight to stay clinicians? Or will they obey to the, nowadays, you have to work so fast and you have questionnaires and you can just press on a button to have a response, and this is not a clinical work. So the importance for the future lays with the psychologists themselves. Will they fight to stay clinicians? If they do, then the comprehensive system will have another 100 years to live with. That's what I wanted to say.
Yes, that's great. Okay. Patrick, any last words about
No. I had prepared a few words, but after Hans' intervention, I think I'm just gonna leave it like this. It's perfect concluding words.
So there we have it, an overview of the CS-R and the Institute. We hope this is going to be of interest to the Rorschach community. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions or comments, we're now going to show you an email address. Please do send in your questions, your comments, and you will get a response. Thank you so much.